know kind of what War Pony's going to look like. You do a good spiel with that.
A good spiel. You're getting off to a rough start today, buddy.
I know. I stayed out till 4 o'clock in the morning. So you know, listen, in New York, the bars don't close here. See, I'm from Iowa. Yeah, country boy come to city. I only know to stop drinking when they flick the lights on. So I'm just drinking and 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 drinking. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm real tired. Oh, it's 4 in the morning. I should go to bed. So anyway, New York gets me every year, man. New York gets me. So
we're real happy to be here in New York with you guys, man, with Grease and Gears Garage. Thanks for spending some time with us. Like Pat said, War Pony is our 7-city project that we're going to be working on. This thing started with my 2003 Ultra. For anybody that missed the Long Beach presentation that we did, 240,000 miles on that bike, and a friend of mine borrowed it and totaled it. So the question is, what do you do with a high mileage twin cam touring motorcycle when it's all bent up? You know, that it's not like you want to take the time and actually chase down the parts and put that back to stock. And so we decided we're going to make a chopper out of it. Luckily, I found out just recently the Paco makes a frame that takes that whole touring driveline and slips right into a cool little FXR chassis. So I was like, well, that's cool, man, because we already did a big S&S 110 motor in it. We did the Baker 6-speed transmission, so it was a monster already. And I figured if we got it down to this little chassis, that thing would be a lot of fun. So we went ahead with the idea. We, pulled this thing apart. Here's the frame from our visit to Paco. That's some of the stuff we're going to be doing here in a little bit today, going over smoothing out the frame and addressing some of the manufacturer's factory welds. But here's the motor coming out of the donor bike. My lovely wife is my shop mate. She helps me out. And there's our donor bike. So 2003, it was all banged up on the side of the road. Pulled the motor out, took the motor to Zippers. Danny from Zippers is right now going through that whole thing, making sure everything's back to A-OK order. Are those my old guy goggles?
Yes.
That's terrible. It's terrible what you're doing to me. So I wanted to build this thing. I wanted to build a cool little FXR, zip around the street. But at the same time, I didn't want to do exactly what everyone else is doing. Not that whatever everyone else is doing is wrong. It's just, even in my choppers, when everybody was building little bobbers, I built great big long choppers. When everybody was building, whatever they're building, I'm going the opposite direction. I build
that makes it custom, man.
Yeah. So with this thing, we want to do something that's a little like lower to the ground, clip-on handlebars, drag race inspired, little fairing, everything nice and tight and compact. 18-inch match wheels we're going to be running on this. And then we got to the point of suspension. So if we're going to have this thing, it can't just have, regular stock front end. It can't have a chopper front end. But what are we going to do? Our choices in the market, obviously everybody's going for the high dollar stuff like the...
Sasha Krause has a beautiful inverted front end that's very expensive.
Olin's has them. There's a number of them out there, but my roots, you have to understand, my roots are from choppers. So the way we do stuff is with what we have laying around or stuff that we can get on the cheap. So a couple weeks ago while we were in Long Beach, I found a guy that had this GSXR complete front end. $600. I got the brakes, the front end, the handlebars, the clamps, even the controls and the switches.
What a deal. What a deal.
Right?
I felt like it sounds like he was in the old city in Jerusalem, trying to buy motorcycle parts.
So I immediately went to work on this, and I was like, go to website, see who's talking about what on the forum. Is this possible? How do you make it work? And the biggest limiting factor to getting this thing to work on an American motorcycle is the neck stem. So a couple guys real quick, they talked about the fact that all you have to do is turn down the neck stem. Now you see here, this is the stock neck stem that comes on a GSXR. What we needed to do was the bearing surface area, which I think I have a diagram. The bearing surface area, if you see the two 3/4 inch areas at the top and bottom, that's where the bearings actually ride on this thing. So the challenge was to come down from the metric measurement and get it down to the 1-inch ID of a Harley-Davidson neck bearing. Doing that with the stock neck would be totally okay, except for the fact that The sport bikes often are worried about weight, so they hollow those things out, and they're made from aluminum. What we found out when we got down to this is we were looking at about a 188 wall thickness, which that may be okay, but maybe on the front of a heavy bike that has a big motor, that's probably not good enough. So,
maybe it's never good when you're riding a motorcycle.
It's really not. So what we decided to do instead was not take a chance on this. We went with a piece of raw stainless. A buddy of mine at Faith Forgotten Choppers, Big Will Ramsey, helped me set this thing up on his lathe. He made this drawing for us, and we set out to make our own neck stem for that motorcycle. So we pressed this one out, and I think we have a video. If we could roll video 1, we have a video of Will doing the work, but we pressed the old neck stem out, and what we were able to do is not only come up with a heavier, precise match to what we needed, but at the same time we dropped a little bit of length. We got rid of the 2 nuts that go on here for the bearing locks, and we went down to a Harley style with our own top count. So this is Will going through all the steps, heating out the old neck stem and pressing it out. He actually had the machine a little cup on the bottom to get it pressed good so that we could make sure that it wasn't going to bust the clamp, because it's important to me, as many of these stock parts as I can use, I want to use these. So we came up with our stem. We're going to go with the stainless one. I'm actually going to take this now, we're going to press it in, get it back in the bottom tree, and start assembling this front end.
And little things like pressing it out, those kind of, typically, and I try to tell guys that come to my shop either to work on their own stuff or to help me out, or employees or whatever. I try not to ever have employees at Sin Central, but every once in a while it happens. But really try to tell people that the last tool that you want to use on your motorcycle is the hammer. It's always better to press, pull. Beating on things on a motorcycle just is a bad idea. If you try to beat that out or beat that in, you're going to damage the surface on it. You might say, well, I'm not going to reuse it, so it's okay for me to do that. But the problem is you also, you might not even see it at the time, but if you're beating on that, you can actually develop hairline cracks in your other parts that you're doing that with.
And you know, that's the thing that you really worry about too, because you might get away with taking a hammer to that thing, but it's the damage that you don't see.
Right, because those cracks will start internally and then kind of work their way out in those kind of cast pieces. So yeah. So let's try to remember that. Let's not use hammers. So now, Chris, as you're doing that, War Pony's got a cool name. And it comes from the Hokahay run that you were on. It's kind of a throwback to that. Talk to us a little bit about that.
It's really cool. I don't know what anybody here has heard about the Hokahay race, but I was involved in the very first one. And it was a race from Key West, Florida, went back and forth across the country, all through Canada, and eventually ended up in Alaska. And it was the best thing that I ever did.
How many miles was that?
I did 9,500 miles in 12 days.
9,500 miles in 12 days, and it's a race.
Yeah.
So you'd ride 1,000 miles, you get to your destination, and you don't know where the next destination is until you picked it up at that stop. And so it's kind of, it's an adventure.
Yeah, every 1,000 miles you got a sheet of directions. And it wasn't a sheet of directions like go 200 miles to Route 10 and turn right here. It would just be the next turn is State Road 34. That's it. Could be 2 miles, could be 200, could be 1,000. So it was really neat.
You had to pay attention the whole time.
Yeah, which that led to the fact that after the second day I was no longer in a race.
Then you were just riding. You were just taking a ride after that.
It goes back to the metaphysical part of motorcycling.
But the winner of that race got how much?
$500,000.
$500,000 if you won. So it was worth awesome. Doing and if you won.
And he was two days ahead of me and probably crazy as a shithouse mouse.
Yeah.
All right, so we have our OSHA approved pressing tool.
I see that. And we have to get a union guy. We're in New York. I think a union guy probably should be up here, monitoring this.
This is no big deal, like, other than making sure that we go in straight, which we're not.
The other reason you want to do this on a press on this particular thing is because if you tried to eyeball this, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but that triple tree, it's raked towards one side. And so optically, when you look at it, if you try to do that straight, if you don't have that on a flat surface, it's pressing flat, it's really easy to tap that thing in there to get it, put it in there crooked.
Which we did.
Which you did. So you can just imagine if you weren't using a press.
Well, and this is the reason why guys like Will that are way smarter than us actually make special tooling to do this stuff.
Right. I mean, he would also probably have machined a jig to put underneath there, and Will it would have taken Will a long time to do this because he would have re-engineered the world.
Okay. So while Mark's working on straightening that back out.
Now, you were talking about the Hokahay, but you never got to War Pony.
Oh, so Hokahay race was put on by the Lakota Sioux, and it was to raise awareness for the fact that they have a problem getting water to their reservation, clean drinking water. So I thought in honor of that, I dressed my motorcycle up in the same war paint that Crazy Horse did on his pony. And that's how I rode the Hokahay. And man, the bike really became like a celebrity in itself for all that. So I figured, since we're using all of the same motor parts, soul of the motorcycle, that we would, give it that name. And we'll, through the design process, you guys will see, we'll take some of that there too.
War Pony is harkens back then to Crazy Horse and the Lakota tribe.
So all I'm going to do while Mark is straightening that up, I'm going to get set to press our races in. This is a tool you can get from a number of people. I believe Jim's makes this tool. Can you hand me that nut over there, buddy?
What are you looking for?
There's a nut.
Oh.
And all it does is allow you, not that one.
What's that? Not that one.
The silver one. Right there by the tree.
Oh,
there
the little one. I couldn't figure out what you wanted. I was like, you don't need that yet, man.
But it allows you to apply even pressure on the races as you pull them into the neck.
You need 2 5/8 wrenches?
Yeah. What's that?
I'm hurrying, Mark.
How about next?
Don't leave the drawer open. Hey, Mark, if you leave one of these drawers open in Mark and Chris's shop, Mark charges you $50 for every drawer you leave open. Mark, where did you learn how to do that? Oh, when he worked at the big truck garage, they'd fine him $50 because 27 stitches later, because if you leave a drawer open, somebody can stand up and hit their head on it. So Mark will fine you for leaving a drawer open.
Mark finds me every time I'm in the shop.
I'm surprised he even lets you in the shop.
I'm not kidding. I get fined for leaving my dirt on the ground, for not taking the garbage out.
Okay, here's another thing. You were talking that Jim's has this tool. You can get this tool several places, but I don't know why you would do this yourself at home if you're just a casual motorcycle rider, but if you're going to do this, buying the tool is worthwhile, because if you don't have the tool,
I look for any excuse that I can get to
buy a tool. I know everybody does, yeah. So even if you're never going to use this, you can say you have this tool in your toolbox, and that's cool. Hey, Ben, why don't you come up here and sit with us? Come act like you're actually visiting me in my shop, which nobody ever does, because I live in Iowa.
I'll take that back. The surest way to get something to go goofy.
You can sit over here by us if you want to. This is Ben. Ben's got a bike here in the J&P Cycles Ultimate Builder Show. He builds motorcycles. He builds funny motorcycles, though. He builds them ducatities. Is that what they call them?
He was saying to me, I said, so what bike you got in the show, man? He goes, well, I got a Ducati. He said, but it's different. And I was like,
yeah, he's got a custom Ducati out there in the show, so you're going to want to. Well, it's got a Ducati motor. That's about all that's Ducati about it. It's got the soul of a Ducati.
I like different.
Oh, different's cool, man. That's.
So, I'm having a rough day in the shop.
Not every day goes as smoothly.
I'm telling you.
Well, it's because you got too much sleep. None of us slept last night. Of course, I self-imposed no sleep. You were just driving from Pittsburgh, right?
Oh, man, but not even from Pittsburgh. We all left when we finished up the show in Long Beach, and I shouldn't be doing that.
Last tool you should ever use. God damn,
right?
Chris.
Weren't you just telling everybody that? When we left the show in Long Beach, man, everybody there was tired. Everybody. And then I drove back across the country.
Yeah, you spent Thanksgiving in Phoenix. So we did the Long Beach IMS show, and Chris and Heather drove out there and then drove back and did Thanksgiving in Phoenix, went back to Pittsburgh, and are now here. So you've had a whirlwind.
And the worst thing about that was when you leave Mesa, Arizona, it's still in the 90s there. You leave Mesa and you start heading up through the high desert. The high desert at nighttime was 28 degrees, and it never got warm again. The whole way home.
Yep.
Just cold.
So for those of you that don't know, Chris not only has flat broke rods and chops, he also, with Mark, he also is the owner and editor of Cycle Source magazine. And so he's used to it, and his beautiful daughter, Heather.
Yeah.
You want me to hold the bottom one while you?
No. Oh, it's kicking my ass, though. It really is. Huh? Yeah, I know.
You're in it to win it at this point, though.
I know.
Oh, it's going. That's got you. That's got you. Go, Chris. Go. No, let's not do that.
It's still crooked.
Yeah, but it'll
what?
pull itself flat.
You think so?
How did you do that? All right, well,
Mark's going to help me.
I think this is an opportunity for a large socket and a hammer. There is a use for the hammer, which is why you keep it in the toolbox, other than just having something fun to throw when you get frustrated.
It's really good when your buddy comes over and he's being a smart ass when you're having a hard time. You drop it on his
Yeah. Like our buddy Kevin Dunworth, who I know is at home watching this, because Kevin has Loaded Gun Customs. And where is he? He's in, like, what's the place in Selbyville, Delaware. Kevin took a tumble on a flat track bike, and now his shoulder and his hand have had surgery, so he can't move. And
what's up?
His wife has to take him to the bathroom. And
give Kevin a shout out.
He had an unfortunate. Aaron and Kevin had an unfortunate incident with his zipper this morning, apparently. So he's not enjoying the care that he's receiving from Aaron, his wife. But we had him on stage at the Blue Ridge Run in North Carolina in June, and he was doing a custom exhaust on stage. Now, I don't like working in front of people in general.
It's kicking it.
Which is why I'm just talking. Hey, buddy, how's it going? I'm from New Hampshire. But Kevin, was using our welder, not used to it or anything, and he gets up there and starts burning holes in the exhaust, and it wasn't going well, and he couldn't get it to do it, and he's sweating, and we finally just let him off the hook, because with you guys, I don't think we mentioned, we're doing this on Facebook Live as well, and right now, I don't know what the count is, but we'll probably have somewhere around 50,000 people right now watching Facebook Live around the country with this, and so Kevin knows that's happening to him, and all these people are watching him. fall flat on his face. So it is kind of difficult when you're on stage and things aren't going well. That is the one thing about hanging out in somebody's shop opposed to hanging out with somebody's shop when it's on a stage. So.
I'm not going to have enough. Yeah, there you go.
Now, Mark, on top of being with Chris there at Flat Broke at the shop, Mark is also a tradesman. He remodels apartments. So when you guys think, wow, man, I wonder how you eventually get to do this kind of stuff. You work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not always with motorcycles. So the glamorous life of the motorcycle world.
This is actually something good.
So tell me a little bit about your Ducati that you got here while they're doing that.
So it's a 1999 Ducati 900 SS, and I'm not like the biggest sport bike guy. I don't really like crotch rockets. I like to be able to see like what the motors look like and like what's happening inside of it. So initially when I bought it, I just bought it to. It was having some problems, so I bought it for pretty cheap, and I initially planned on just buying it to sell it, and I got it running, and I took it out for a couple rides, and I was like, man, this thing's kind of badass, and decided not to sell it, and a buddy of mine wanted to learn how to ride, and I had a couple beers, and I wasn't thinking, so I threw him the keys to the Ducati, and said, here you go. And
better?
Like 20 minutes later, my phone was ringing, and he wrecked it, so I had to go pick it up, and it was pretty well jacked up, and I was like, well, I guess now's the time to chop it up and let's do something a little bit different with it than everybody else.
Best thing that could have ever happened to that bike, wasn't it?
Like 3,000 hours of work ago, I thought it, but now.
That's a what?
Now, where is it in the show physically? If somebody were going to go, which side of the show is it?
We have two bikes. They're right across from the Indian booth, kind of like in the center.
Right.
So if you go to like the middle X, there's a Honda CB750 that we have here, and the Ducati right next to it. It's
what's your shop name?
It's Legion Cycle Works. We're out of Middletown, Delaware. So we're about 2.5 hours south of here.
And his hometown motorcycle event would be OC Bike Fest then, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
And,
we met Pat down there and
in June. Yeah, it was fortunate and unfortunate. Not everybody enjoys meeting me, so I tend to.
Everybody loves you, though.
Everybody loves me,
especially Kevin.
That's right. So now, what's your next project coming up? What are you doing in your shop?
So we were kind of like scrambling, honestly. We thought we had more time to get ready for this because last year it was closer towards Christmas. So like 2 weeks ago, I hadn't checked the calendar, and we thought it was a good idea to rip the Ducati apart. So now it's kind of like vacation this weekend, and then when we get back on it, we have a handful of bikes coming in for some custom paint work. We have a scrambler build, a tracker build, like some cafe racer stuff.
Right.
So we're just right now 5 or 6 different like custom things, and then just like the normal maintenance wintertime stuff that everybody's been putting off all year.
Yeah, real cool. Yeah, everybody is hunkering down for winter right now. So this is a weird winter for me at the shop because I'm building my shop. So this winter, instead of building motorcycles and cars, I'm going to be building my shop. So out in Iowa, which is fun. What you got going on now, Chris?
That was a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, it was. But you worked through it because you're a patient, intelligent man.
So this is actually a good thing to talk about. Back in our shop, we have a 60-ton press that's stronger than everything. This is obviously not as strong, and we got a lot of movement, so we really had to clamp the part down. It kept kicking sideways. You know, back to making do with what you have. But there we go. We're pressed in with that. So there's our new stem, ready to go with...
Looking good. We know it fits in there nice and tight.
Yep.
Thank you, Will Ramsey.
So we're gonna get ready to put this thing together. Get the rest of the seat pushed in. Hopefully.
We got Paulie Michael from JMP Cycles watching us on Facebook Live. He just popped up there. Paulie, thank you for keeping up with us. If you guys watch this, you can go back and watch this now at all the other IMS shows for you guys that just showed up. We're going to have tons of builders up every day at every IMS show doing different things. We're going to have this weekend, we're going to be showing you how to make a gas tank, and we actually are going to make it. We've got the tools and everything. We're going to be We're going to be welding and cutting and grinding and cussing and cutting ourselves and banging our fingers. And this is just like a working garage. But this particular project, the Grease and Gears Garage Gang, we're going to build this bike over the course of the 7-show series. And so that by the end of the show series, the Progressive International Motorcycle Show series, this will actually run and ride off a stage. So War Pony will be coming together. So you guys can keep up with that on Facebook Live. And every one of the things, if you're not real familiar with Facebook, you can go to motorcycleshows.com. They're taking the Facebook feed from that, and you can go back there to their Facebook page, and you can make sure that you can watch it. It records, so you can pull it up anytime. It'll also be on Cycle Source's page. JMP Cycles will have it on there, so you can find that several different places. And so go make sure that you go and watch this build come together. And it's also going to be a great library, a wonderful repository of just kind of motorcycle building information. And it doesn't matter what kind of bike you ride. At some point, you're going to have to do something to it. And so it's always good to kind of learn how to use tools. We're the white trash, greasy end of the motorcycle pool. A lot of people say it's the shallow end of the motorcycle gene pool is where we come from. I know there's a lot of you guys out there that drink cappuccino and ride BMWs and have real jobs, and we're jealous of you. But there's something that you guys can see in this too, because I'm always fascinated. Like we get Ben up here, I'm always fascinated watching the guys that are doing the stuff that just to me is weird and strange. Like I get into I've never done it. I've ridden long distance Harleys my whole life, but I really get off coming here and watching the adventure touring bikes. I love looking at that stuff. It's gnarly and hardcore and the bags, but I've just never bought one. Chris, we're doing all right over here. Ben, did you fix one? Ben took care of it. Everybody give Ben a big hand.
Ben saved us. See, that's
coming in from Delaware or not. That's what you call getting a smattering of applause, Ben.
That's why you got to have your buddies hang out with you in the garage.
That's why you have people hang out. That's right. You always keep a lot of liquid refreshment in the fridge in the shop so that you can bribe guys to come hold things for you. And motorcycle things, Chris. Motorcycle things.
All right.
But now, Chris, are you almost ready to put this front end on?
Yep.
All right. You just wanted to ride it real quick.
Dude, I've sat on this motorcycle so many times already going, it's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
This, for me, is actually the fun part of the build, right? It's when it's exciting and everything. It's when you get down to those nitty-gritty details, the bike's all assembled, now you got to wire it, and
I've always thought that the 80% of the work is in the last 20% of finishing a bike.
Oh, absolutely. That's like the last 20%. That's where you can't be just hairy, scary with the tools. You got to be careful so you don't nick stuff. I never liked that part. Careful is not my middle name.
So check this out.
For those of you that joined us as well, we want to thank Progressive International Motorcycle Show for bringing Grease and Gears Garage. What a great opportunity for us and for you guys. They saw the value in kind of doing some instructional stuff. And Jackie, thank you for being here. Jackie, what are they doing over there? I see you got some guys out of Austin, Texas over there. Do they know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Well, come on in, friends. Don't be shy. Like Pat had just mentioned, we are absolutely up and running and rocking and rolling over here at the Progressive Parlor. Our good friends back there from Shed Barbershop are dishing out all of those awesome free barbershop services back there. So make sure you head on back there and get yourself signed up and get yourself hooked up with a little bit of this incredible service brought to you courtesy of America's #1 rated motorcycle insurance company. That's us over here at Progressive Motorcycle Insurance. Speaking of Progressive Motorcycle Insurance, if you're a policyholder, come on over to the Grinder. We've got free coffee waiting for you. Last but not least, everybody here can get signed up to win that great-looking custom bike in the middle of our booth. And when you get signed up to win that beautiful BMW, I'm going to throw in a free hat or T-shirt just because I can.
Now, Sean is standing over here by the Grinder, and he's standing with two of Progressive's calendar girls from this year's calendar. Now, what are they doing with those computers over there, though? Are they agents on site?
And absolutely, when you come on in here, if you want to get a quote and find out exactly why we are the #1 rated motorcycle insurance company here in the United States and learn how to join our Moto family, you can stop by and get a free insurance quote from my local agents on hand. And when you do that, I'm going to throw in a free cup of coffee also.
There you go. Well, thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Pat.
All right, what you got going, Chris?
Well, I was going to show everybody one of the last steps that we did. If you guys watch the video, we actually turned out, this is our stock top clamp that came with the GSXR front end. We turned that out on a mill so that we could put our own top nut. This is a little more like an American motorcycle. If you look at the bottom of that nut, if you guys can see it close enough, there's actually a shoulder left there so that it squashes itself before the outside of the nut actually hits into the top. That's a kind of a neat thing that Will does. But and I think we're ready to go. So we can put this up on the bike.
And if you're sitting out there, you're on Facebook Live, and you're like, oh, that's cool, you milled it out. You say that, you just throw that out there like, oh, everybody's got a mill. Yeah, I've got one of those under my kitchen sink. I'll just pull it out. You will be amazed if you want to do some custom stuff to your motorcycle, regardless of what you're riding, and you need something machined or milled or anything like that, go to a place in your town or a city near you and just go up to one of those big shops, one of these big fab shops, manufacturing places. You would be amazed at how willing they are to do stuff for you, usually very reasonably, because it's not just the everyday production stuff they're doing, man. They actually get to do something else. And it's actually a treat for them to be able to be a part of your project. So don't be shy away if you say, oh, I can't do that because I don't have that. You can include other guys that are just going to be thrilled to be a part of your project that normally wouldn't get to do that. I build cars and motorcycles there in Iowa, and I have guys call me all the time. Oh, man, if you ever need anything, I'd really like to help. So don't be shy. Go get some help.
No, and you know what? That's something, too. We've we've written books about custom motorcycle building basics and stuff. Having that relationship, all the relationships in your town, a good parts guy, a good machine shop guy, a good body guy, a good painter. Like, some of my best features on motorcycles that I've built have come from, I would take a trip up to the machine shop with an armful of stuff, and I'd just say to the old guy up there, how do I make this work? Is there a way to make this work? He helped me engineer. I took a what the hell year was that? 74 Sportster that had the opposite side shifting, and I wanted to put a tank shifter with a foot clutch on that bike. So he helped me engineer taking the pass-through brake, the mechanical brake. I cut it off the frame when I hardtailed it, and I put it up under the tank, and he helped me engineer all the linkage to make that tank shifter.
Right on.
You know what I mean? And that was just for me asking. It wasn't about...
And he was probably thrilled to do it because he got to think through a project that otherwise he wouldn't have gotten to do. I built a Royal Enfield. North America gave me the opportunity to take one of their Continental GTs, 535 GT. They were giving them to a bunch of builders around the country, and everybody was building cool little cafe racers out of them. And I don't do cafe racers, so I built a 10.5-foot long 70s style chopper called Skinny Mini. It's 6 inches at its widest point, and super long and tricked out. I got a girder front end I built for it. But with that project, I eliminated the carburetor and the computer. I eliminated the fuel injection and the computer, so I had to design my own way to get it timed and had to build a manifold for the carburetor. And machine shops around town were just thrilled to help me with that stuff.
So, as you will often find, some stuff from the aftermarket, whether it's the extra chrome or, the hurry-up machine process, everything doesn't always fit exactly. These are just dust cuffers for the bearings. So we're just going to take our die grinder bit and open them up a little bit so they slide on easier. The crucial part is the bearing fitment. You want the idea of those bearings. You want that to be a good fit.
Now you're just going to take the hammer and
no.
This is not a point. If you hear the word bearing and hammer coming together in your garage while a friend's helping you, he's not really your friend. He's about to cost you money.
So we're
going to want to press bearings on.
We're obviously going to put these bearings on dry. If this was final assembly, you would see us. I like to hand pack bearings. A lot of guys will use a little cup thing. I like to hand pack my bearings, get them really saturated with grease before they go in. We're not going to do that in this case because this is a dry fit mock-up that we're doing.
And this is something that's good to watch too, because everybody's got neck bearings in their bike. This is something that, you know, you can watch this video over and over again. You could do this to your motorcycle.
But this is that when we started this, I was telling you guys about how light the neck stem is, and you know that we had already machined this down. If you want to pass this around and show everybody, that's the stock one that we started machining. And at that point, we decided it was time to just make our own. Yeah.
I was helping in Long Beach, and I put the front end on backwards. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't let me help anymore.
You can still help. You just can't touch anything.
I can't touch anything. Yeah. In Long Beach, we were showing kind of what the bike was going to look like, putting it together. And they'd put the handlebars and the fairing on it. And I didn't realize that they didn't have bolts that were long enough for the clip-on handlebars. I leaned on it, and the whole thing fell apart. So I'm really not supposed to be anywhere near it. Did you put it on backwards that time, too?
Yeah.
I just said. That's what you get when Harley guys work with sport bike parts.
There you go. Okay. It looked great the first time.
I don't feel as dumb now. No, I feel as dumb. I just don't feel as lonely. I did lean on the bike and the whole thing fell apart. So until that happens, you guys are still one up on me.
I got dropsies today.
Now, Chris, what special tool do you have that tightens that top nut?
A little screwdriver.
There is a tool for that. I don't own one either. Do you own one?
What's that?
You know, for the
Spanner. It's called a spanner wrench.
a spanner wrench. I couldn't remember what it was called. I don't have one. Chris doesn't have one either.
No.
We use a screwdriver and a hammer. Again, you can use a hammer. It's not bad. And it's near a bearing, so. I've had the pleasure of meeting those barbers over there in Flo's Chop Shop. Worked with those cats for a little while, and they come out of a place called Shed Barber Shop in Austin, Texas.
And Dead Bluff.
Nothing but the best for you guys when Progressive rolls out that stuff. And
What?
they were rated one of the top 10 barbershops in the country by GQ magazine. So if you guys want to get cleaned up, maybe you just want to get scruffy between now and Sunday and come back. I don't know, and let them clean you up. So, but I'm looking out there, and honestly, some of you could use some help. Man, we don't dermaplane though. I'm sorry, we don't dermaplane. You're gonna you deal with you. Okay, you do you. I can say that to her. That's Ben's old lady. She's a hang-around. Old lady's a term of endearment. I keep trying to tell my old lady that. She doesn't buy it.
Huh?
Probably because she's a lot younger than me, though. Now I'm just bragging.
Oh, what do you want? Yeah, right there. All right.
What time is it? Are we still okay?
So
I got to make sure I don't go over or Jackie yells at me.
there's I should mention, there's a bunch of guys, you know, Bill Dodge, George from Chaos that's going to be here later, that have different variations of doing some work like this. A lot of those guys, like George has a beautiful, beautiful set of trees for doing this that just takes away all this problem. You buy the trees, you know what I mean? But we wanted to go through, again, like I said, the grassroots. I found this on eBay. Can I make it work? And
Part of what attracted me to Cycle Source magazine and to Chris's kind of world back in the day was my shop, Sin Central Garage.
Right.
Our tagline is resurrecting hot rods, Harleys, and Hellions. So I really like to recycle, repurpose, reuse stuff, and so do Chris and Mark. And so it's kind of, for me, it's kind of that's part of the fun. It becomes what will fit together, kind of where can I find it, or what can I use this for?
So here's a neat thing. Let me pull out some of my. This is another thing. Last week when we were talking about stuff that you should get set up ahead of time when you're starting to build. I have a bunch of these kits, and they're assorted bungs and slugs and tabs. Like, I keep this. I keep this.
I need that one.
I keep this stuff around for a specific purpose. Like, we're looking at this right now, and I'm thinking, okay, well, how am I going to make my fork stops work? Because obviously there's nothing on this frame. It's banging here already. It's probably going to bang my tanks. What I'm going to do, not here today, but I'm going to notch the back of these out, these little bullets, and I'll take those and weld them in right on the corner of that frame, so when that stop that's on this stock tree comes back, it's going to hit that bullet. That'll give me a nice stop. You know, you could do the same thing if you get these that take the button head screws.
Right.
You know, right on the end you can put the button head screw. I do that on choppers a lot, so just like I said, even though this is a performance bike for us, we'll do it chopper style.
Yeah, you know, on the Skinny Mini, when I built that Royal Enfield bike, it'll be at the Minneapolis show, but
there we go.
I needed a fork stop on it, and so I did what they did back in the 60s. I used a piece of chain. I ran it from the frame up to my neck, and it stops the forks, just one piece of chain. So
yep.
My son's 25. He couldn't believe it. He was like, "You're going to what?" He rides sport bikes. "So you're going to use what for a fork stop?" He said, "That's never going to work." I put it on there. He can't stop talking about it now. He just loves that. He's like, "Man, you should see what my dad came up with." And I'm like, "Dude, I did not come up with that. That is an old trick, buddy."
Okay, so at this point, I'm really happy with the front end. I appreciate Will. I know you're out there watching this. Will from Faith Forgotten Choppers helped us, stayed up one night, machined that for us, and helped us get to this point. So our front end solution is complete. From here, we have to figure out our headlight mounting, you know, probably going to use the stock configuration for the ignition switch and everything just to stick with that. But now I want to talk to you guys about the frame. So we'll start taking this front end back apart, and we're going to put it off to the side because we want to do some work on this frame. Now you'll find when you start working with frame up builds that not everybody takes the time and patience to display what the young kids call weld porn, you know, which is the beautiful stack of dimes down the side of a weld. That doesn't mean that they're bad welds. I mean, this is a production frame. It's a quality frame. Most people would put this motorcycle together and ride the wheels off of it. But since we're working here in the custom capacity, I want to show you guys a little bit about the treatment that we give our frames on the way up through a build. So once we get this front end apart, we're going to take this over to the weld table and start dressing these welds out. You know, and that doesn't mean that we're going to take the welds off of it. We want to lightly come in with a graduating amount of discs. So we'll start with the stone, we'll move to the flapper wheels, eventually down until we get to the little roll-lock sanding disc, and just smooth all that stuff out. If we have to at the end, I hate to use putty, so I would much rather come back in on any of the rough spots and actually take a silica bronze on my TIG welder, and I'll fill that stuff back in to get it smooth. Benefit of the silica bronze, it's almost like when we used to work with brazing rod. It puddles real nice. It removes easier than the parent metal does, so it gives you an easy out. It's like a quick trick without having to worry about the putty coming out later on. You know,
very similar to old guys doing lead.
Yeah, and I've actually done. I mean, Eastwood makes a really nice kit for doing lead soldering again now, and I've done that on some choppers, and it's cool. It takes a lot more time than the silica bronze stuff does, so it's kind of like an art. If you want to learn lead soldering for the benefit of knowing that art, it's really cool. Eastwood makes a kit. It comes with a DVD. It's a whole day of fun just learning how to prep and get ready for it. But, you know, for the stuff that we're doing by the time we're done with this frame, we'll have 100 hours in dressing this frame out before we're actually ready to build anything on it. I want to save a little bit of time. I'm going to go to that silica bronze so that I can get my corners smooth, and we can move on.
All right.
So like I said in the beginning, if you guys were watching this stuff in Long Beach, this was just a raw frame. We had just visited Paco and we had just picked this up. And from Long Beach to here, it was already starting to rust. So all we did was scuff this down and take some barbecue black just to keep it from rusting. So that's the only reason it looks like this now. If you're looking from down there and you see something that we missed, it's not because we were trying to be perfect. But I don't know what the camera is picking up here. If you can see any of these welds, you can see that this is just a manufactured product, and it's done well. But as far as the level of custom that we want to take this to, we want to take it a little bit further than that.
Will Ramsey told me on stage one time that you could stick weld a frame together. It'd just be ugly. So this is the beautification process. This isn't taking it to the next level, just kind of quality of craftsmanship stuff.
So we're going to show you guys, for anybody who's not familiar with doing this work, I really dig this part of it. For me, this is the setup and knowing what you're going to get in the end. This is a lot of the enjoyment for me for customizing a motorcycle. So 2 different tool methods we're going to go with is air, die grinder, and angle grinder, and the electric grinder. This particular tool I spent more time with than any other living being on the planet. So,
and as Warren's Lane brother has told everybody, making sparks is cool. So we're about to be cool.
People love sparks. So we're going to start with that with a stone. Now, the important thing to know here is you can go too far too fast. So all you want to do is just the very roughest part of these welds, any of the little spatter, any of the wires that are hanging out, you just want to rough that stuff out and start getting rid of it. We'll very quickly from that move on to a 60 like this flapping wheel. You guys can, I'll pass this around for anybody that's not familiar with this stuff. It's just like a sheet of 60 grit sandpaper, but they put it on this nice wheel here that fits on that grinder. It's kind of a cool tool. It's become one of my favorite because they go, the whole way down 120s, 240s. It's a really nice way to get a lot of work done fast. I'm a big fan of the electric grinder.
And all the materials on the outside, because if you get one that's a full flat surface, you're never going to use that. So
right.
It's more economical. You'll probably want to do that from the other side so the cameras can pick it up. Is that all right?
Yeah, we're gonna put the screen up just for the fire marshal's sake.
Well, that's convenient.
We don't hurt anybody here. But at the same time, here's a whole selection of die grinder tips that come from the Eastwood company. This wasn't very expensive at all. They slip right in your die grinder, and this gives you the ability to get into nooks and crannies and start smoothing those welds out and do something that's going to make your bike, again, it's going to give you a look on your motorcycle that's a step above production.
Watch the screens. That way you can see what we're doing. We got 3 cameras, and so they'll pick this up. But the fire marshal's not real fond of the sparks.
So me and Mark are actually going to double team this thing at the same time. While he's using electric, I'm going to move to the air grinder. And we're going to try to get a good bit of this done while we're up here.
Bands' tools. And you're going to wear your safety goggles, of course. Safety apparatus.
Now, I gave you guys the example of the flapping wheels for the grinder, but for the air grinder, Scotch-Brite, and this is not for the heavy work that we're doing right now, but when we come back, when we start to get this stuff smoothed out, Scotch-Brite makes these great roll-lock discs. And they roll on real quick, buy them a box at a time. It's a nice way to go from that. Once you get down to the 80 or the 120 on the flapper disc, you start using these roll locks, man, and it almost brings it to a polish. Like if you move to the purples and the blues of these, you can actually get it to almost a
polish
like
chrome,
finish.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got about 5 minutes, guys. So finish the frame in 5 minutes.
So, like I said, I'm going to move to
We try to do this like a cooking show, like get a little bit of it ready at a time, but it's hard, it just takes time. There are some guys, we got a friend named Aaron Green with Paramount Custom Cycles, and he'll do hand file. He hand files all of his frames, and it's a fascinating process to watch, but man, that guy just... Like Chris said, when you're doing this, one of the things this is a part of the process that you can get really excited about and be, oh, well, it's just metal, and you can really go at it. You can go too deep, and you can fix it, which is why I'm not a carpenter, because if you screw up wood, you can't put weld back on it and grind it off. This is a place where you just want to be careful and just little by little take the metal down, so that you don't start getting into gouging the frame, and you'll want to be aware of where the entire surface of your grinding tool is, so that you don't tip one way when you're going to get in and nick your frame, those kinds of things. This should be therapeutic. If you don't find this kind of work relaxing and enjoyable, it'll just frustrate the piss out of you, so don't do it. But typically, if you're into tools and stuff, this is a part that you just take your time with it and enjoy it. Your wife, you can't hear her while the grinder's working. Sometimes I just stand in the garage with my grinder on. Like, I just need 10 minutes to myself, a little alone time. But you will want to invite all of your friends over, however, that aren't mechanically inclined, because once they've seen you make sparks, you become the alpha dog in the group. Because sparks are cool. Remember that. Sparks are cool. Unless you're riding your motorcycle, then you don't want sparks. Sparks are not cool if the mic's moving. He's getting you back on.
Just to show you, this was rough like this piece was up here. We're already just in a couple minutes moving that down. And like I said, it's just about making those transitions smooth, man, so that when you get some nice paint on there, it's not just going to look like, oh, that's where it's welded.
And Chris and Mark are going to use silicon bronze. They're going to kind of braze that in there and smooth it down, like he said, and it'll be all metal. Another option here is, you don't want to gunk it on, but a lot of guys are going to use like a polyester body filler, to do that same thing. So all right.
We're out of time for right now, but I'll tell you what, we're going to be working on this thing all weekend while you guys are here, so come back and check on us in the garage. There's a really big lineup. We're actually going to put this frame back on that speaker, so if you guys want to come and see some of the stuff that we were doing and what we were talking about here, but I appreciate you being with us here.
Yeah, man. Chris, Mark, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Grease and Gears Garage, we're at every Progressive International Motorcycle Show on the Progressive stage, right here in the Progressive Parlor. We're doing Facebook Live, so folks out there in Face Space land, thanks for joining us. And but you guys can join us as we go from city to city and watch this bike come together and watch all the other professional builders we have on stage, narrowing tanks, building handlebars, putting together frames, doing all that kind of stuff live right here on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Jackie, back at you.
Well, make some noise, everybody, for Grease and Gears Garage up there. Host of all these incredible presentations, showing off some amazing skills on how you can build and maintain your bike. And speaking of, we've got our resident mechanic, Daniel, is in the house back at the Chop Shop over here in the Progressive Parlor. Our resident mechanic, Daniel, is back there working away on that Yamaha 700 back there. So if you've got any questions about maintaining your bike or making any repairs, he is our local resident DIY mechanic. So feel free to stop by and say hey to him. But stick around, folks. The fun ain't over quite yet. We are still hooking you up. All sorts of awesome free services, including free barbershop services, free coffee for Progressive policyholders, free hats and t-shirts just for getting entered to win this beautiful free bike. It's all super awesome. It's all super free, and it's all brought to you courtesy of Progressive Motorcycle Insurance.
And she's watching him with those eyes, and she's loving